Hey everybody, Brett from La Bess and the Belfry here, back for another video and another horror vlog.
Welcome!
I It's been a little while since I did a video. Wanted to do another horror vlog though, because I did see this movie just recently. It did come out on Shudder. I didn't have a chance to go to the theater to see it at the time it came out. I wanted to talk about the movie In a Violent Nature. And I have to say, this movie had some pretty mixed reviews, at least at what I had heard. It was a very like, you're gonna love this movie or hate this movie, and that definitely is the case here. But I did want to come on and talk about it. I felt compelled to do a review on it, and I will just say that I very much enjoyed In a Violent Nature. It was quite an interesting film. I really liked its approach. Normally people, yeah, if you describe this movie to somebody, they'd either probably perk up or they'd be like, I don't know about that. But this was a cool idea. It was pretty much if A24 made a Friday the 13th type film. And this is almost like a Jason Voorhees type killer. It's a silent killer. And it's this killer by the name of Johnny that 60 years prior, in this like kind of camp type area, this crime happened where he was kind of bullied, and this accident happened where he fell off of a water tower. And so what ends up happening is this group of kind of college type kids end up taking this locket from this one location on this camp, and this activates the killer Johnny to kind of resurrect, come up out of the ground, and go after whoever has the locket. And the unique thing about this movie is it is very much a slasher film, but it's all from the perspective of the killer, basically. There are some scenes where it kind of cuts to the college kids and them, talking amongst themselves, at least close-ups, but there are some scenes where you see the killer, the camera's basically on the killer, and then you just see what the other characters are doing kind of in the background. So the killer is pretty much the central focus of this movie, and I like that about it. I also like the fact that this movie was weirdly calming in a good amount of it. And while it is called In a Violent Nature, and the kills in this movie are very violent, and in fact there's one particular kill, I would say, I know Terrifier 3 comes out this year, but one of these kills in this movie is probably a contender for kill of the year in a horror movie, because it's pretty gnarly. And there were a couple moments in this movie with that where I was just like, I don't know how they did that. I really couldn't explain it. With practical effects and stuff like that, you have to be pretty gifted with practical effects to have some of this stuff be pulled off. You can do CGI, but a lot of, especially big horror fans, aren't going to be convinced by that. But yeah, there was one kill in this movie, I was just like, that's pretty dang gnarly. And yeah, I would say that's probably a contender for one of the best horror kills of the year. But yeah, most of this movie is from the perspective of the killer, and it is there are just a lot of scenes of just you get like a shoulder view like camera on the killer like walking through the woods a good amount in this movie. But I do like the quietness of this movie, and it is it's oddly calming. Like when the killer isn't striking anybody or going like legit like killing somebody, the movie has a lot of like just nature sounds, and just the walks through the woods are just really, really gorgeous looking. And some people are going to be extremely bored by this movie. And this is a movie where you know whether you're going to like it or not. Because if what I'm describing to you just is turning you off, you're going to hate this movie. If any sort of slow burn or movies that take their time to get going and aren't moving at like a super fast pace, are going to hate this movie, and there's no way around that. But with my sort of taste in some movies, I do like a lot of different subgenres of horror. There's a stink bug outside the window there. Oh, anyway, yeah, they're outside, they're not inside. But there are, yeah, a good amount of like subgenres of horror that I'm a big fan of. And I don't mind fast-paced movies at all. Like, in fact, there's times where it's like I'm not in the mood for something slow and taking its time to get going. But with In a Violent Nature, luckily it is 90 minutes long, so it is the typical length of a movie. But some people think this is going to go at a snail's pace, so therefore they're going to be bothered by it and they're going to go, all right, get to the point already. But that's kind of what I liked about it. It was kind of relaxing to watch. I mean, some horror movies, and not just horror, but there's just some movies in general I just feel are like extremely overstimulating for me. And, you know, I'm an anxious person, but there's some horror out there that is oddly calming to watch. And horror movies are honestly a great thing to watch if you are an anxious person. That is, granted, if you can handle horror movies. But, you know, horror movies are great and are a great way to help explore fear and anxiety. But with this movie, it's like you just watch this awesome like slasher villain just go to town on these people one by one, kind of slowly, but it is really relaxing. I mean, it's basically, yeah, it's if A24 did a Friday the 13th film. It's nothing special, like, you know, it's just pretty much from the perspective of the killer. And I don't have a whole ton to elaborate on with this. I will say what's interesting about this movie. I'm gonna get into spoilers here, so if you haven't seen In a Violent Nature and you plan to, go watch it and just come back to this video. But there is a part towards the end of the film where something happens and one of the last remaining characters, or the final girl, who is really not established all that much in the movie. That's one thing. Before I go further, what I will say is a lot of the characters are pretty disposable. Like, you really don't get to know these characters really at all, but that kind of is what helps with the whole, you know, kind of rooting for the killer type thing, kind of like a Friday the 13th. And so, but the cool thing that happens at the end of this movie is, some people will hate this about it, but there's the final girl who ends up living. She ends up running really far away from the killer, and she basically passes out, and she like wakes up, and like there's like this big stick that ends up through her leg from her falling. And so she pulls it out. She ends up finding her way back to the road and gets picked up by the stranger. And the thing that was really interesting is you were waiting for the horror cliche of like the killer catches up with them, despite how far this lady picked the final girl up and then drove a good bit of distance before she stopped and was like, honey, I have to look at your leg. I gotta help stop the bleeding. And so at that point you think like, oh, the killer's gonna catch up somehow, because that's the horror cliche, and the killer's going to kill the driver that picked up the final girl and then kill the final girl or something like that. That's not what ended up happening, but I liked what they did with it, because the final girl had this paranoia of the killer catching up to her. And, you know, you were just kind of waiting for that for quite a while. Like it's honestly, it's kind of like the last 10 minutes of the movie. It's just the woman picks up the final girl and is just talking to her for a while. So there's just like this very extended scene of just having her try to get some context of what was happening to her. And the driver kind of elaborates on this like bear attack of somebody she knew. And so, yeah, like you're like, all right, I'm just waiting for the killer to catch up and then end up taking them out. And just turns out that it's like the final girl ended up having the locket, you know, around her neck. And really, that's all the killer wanted, was just the locket back, so he could finally, you know, his soul could rest again. And that's what I liked about it, because she just had that paranoia set in for her, and then also for the audience, at least with me, where it's like, yeah, you were just waiting on the killer to strike again, but he never ends up striking again. And so with the end of the movie, where you kind of are expecting to see the killer at some point, but it shows a shot, like the last shot of the movie, where the killer was last seen and he's not there. So at that point, it's saying like all he wanted was to lock it back, guys. It's, you know, it wasn't that hard, you know, to figure out. But yeah, I really liked that aspect of it and how it ended, because it didn't follow that horror cliche or the typical horror trope of doing one last scare at the end of the film. It was just like, well, the guy was pissed off and he basically went to town on one of the last surviving guys. Like, he just took an axe to the guy's face and he just bludgeoned him and bludgeoned him and bludgeoned him, like, over and over and over again. And then the final girl who witnessed this finally was like, okay, maybe I should take the necklace off. And then she just like put it like around like this gas can that was on the ground. And yeah, I mean, this guy was pretty much another version of Jason Voorhees. I did like the like blowtorch type mask that he ended up acquiring like halfway through the film. I like that he was using these hooks and such. Like, I mean, I thought he was a really cool, yeah, I think they just referred to him as Johnny. Maybe they said his last name, but I just don't remember. But Johnny was a pretty cool horror villain, I must say, and someone I can definitely get behind. I'm more of a fan of the silent killers than the Freddy type killers, so that was definitely up my alley. So yeah, I enjoyed this one. Honestly, it might be one of my favorite new horror films that came out this year. I mean, that's not saying a whole lot. I really haven't seen like ones that have like truly wowed me. I mean, Late Night with the Devil was pretty good. There's others I'm definitely forgetting, but yeah, this is one of the better ones I think I've seen this year, or ones that I've genuinely enjoyed watching. And you know, at least it's nice to me where I can like watch a movie that makes me feel relaxed. And you know, In a Violent Nature did. It was like between the kills, you just heard a bunch of nature sounds. So I don't know, I'm a weirdo, but I like that about it. So yeah, I'm gonna recommend In a Violent Nature, but obviously I'm only gonna recommend it to people who like movies that take their time, movies that are a little on the quieter, the slower side. But if you do like Friday the 13th films, you know, I think this has a little bit of appeal to that, to those type of fans. But yeah, if you hate slow movies, you're going to hate this, like probably with a burning passion. But for me, I like movies like this, and sometimes I just feel like there's so much chaos in the world. And while I do like horror films, it's like I do want to watch something that's going to make me feel a bit relaxed. And this hit the spot for me, I will say that. So that's going to do it for my review of In a Violent Nature. I kind of just want to do an update on the channel in general here. I recently, I mean, I've done some stuff on the channel that has involved like wrestling, and I've done some stuff that's a bit all over the place. But with Love Bats and the Belfry, my wife and I had started this channel kind of just as a vlog type channel of just, you know, kind of the spooky horror type lifestyle of doing stuff. And that changed not too long into the channel where I was kind of more focused on reviews and stuff, and, you know, having a vlog here and there. But with this channel, I mean, I want to continue to do videos as much as I possibly can. Our lives are a bit different now. My wife and I, you know, we didn't have kids when we first started the channel, and now that we have a daughter who's, you know, 1.5 years old, and, you know, we'll probably end up having another kid at some point, probably sooner than later. You know, things have gotten busy in our lives, honestly. And I mean, I just want to be transparent here. I feel like, you know, sometimes, you know, I don't feel like I owe anyone an explanation of our personal lives, but at the same time, it's like, if you follow the channel and are kind of like wondering what's going on, yeah, it's like, we're not really doing a whole lot of videos of like vlogs anymore. We can't really go out all that much. You know, when you have a kid and a family, it's like, I can kind of understand why someone would kind of want to stop doing YouTube and kind of focusing on their kid or kids. And, you know, I'm not saying I'm stopping videos, but I kind of want to just focus more on just like horror reviews and do those when I can. And, you know, I've genuinely taken an interest in wrestling stuff recently. So there are some videos on the channel that have to do with wrestling events, but I actually did just start another channel recently. And if you are a fan of wrestling stuff and you follow this channel, if you want to follow that channel, that is the channel Wrestling in the Belfry. I will put a link to that channel in the description to this video, but I'm going to do wrestling kind of reviews on there. And like I said earlier, it's like I'm kind of taking and picking what I feel like what's going to work for me, honestly. And, you know, kind of keep wrestling reviews off this channel for the future, because I have a new channel now and I'm going to do it on there, and then kind of keep this more of the horror type stuff that has really, or spooky stuff that has kind of carried this channel for a long time. So there's all that. And yeah, it's kind of crazy. Our lives have changed a whole lot, and like my wife is not really in videos all that much anymore, and honestly that's her choice and that's okay, and I'm not bothered by that. It's hard to try to plan videos like that when you know people just get old. There's no other way around it. It's like you're just gonna get older, things are gonna fizzle out, things are gonna fade out, you're gonna acquire new friends, you're gonna not really be able to catch up with old friends all too much, and sometimes you grow away from those things. So I kind of just wanted to come on and mention that. And there's even things that are like, I've been getting back into just reading books again, and it's been quite nice. It's been quite a nice different alternative of consumption, meaning like of watch, rather than just watching stuff all the time. Like I've kind of lost a bit of interest. I used to just like watch TV constantly. I'm not really like that anymore. Like I want to, like if I put something on, I kind of just like want to put the TV on to specifically put something on that I'm interested in watching. And so that's what I'm doing. And yeah, and with like picking up a book and reading that's like quite nice and a nice change of pace. And I've been just reading some horror stuff, like of horror books, and I mean I'm getting a lot of enjoyment out of that. And sometimes horror movies can, you just kind of get tired of them. There's not a lot that are really impressing you, so it is cool to have a sort of different outlet about horror. And right now I'm reading Clive Barker's Books of Blood, and I actually did a video of like cool new stuff on this channel where I was talking about Clive Barker books I had just picked up. I'm finally getting around to reading them, but I'm on like Books of Blood Volume 2 right now, and reading some really cool short stories from Clive Barker, and there's a lot of other horror novels that I want to delve into. And so maybe book reviews might be on the horizon for the channel. It really depends. And BookTube is not really something I've like legit like pursued, so really depends on like how much I keep up with the reading and stuff like that. But it is something I have genuinely enjoyed recently. So but yeah, I mean we're in spooky season officially, so there's stuff I'm trying to do. But I mean before you know it, the older you get, just the more time passes, like the faster time passes. And I'm finding that like every year, it's like once it hits September, like before you know it, it's like November. And I'm like, dang, spooky season's over already. But, if I'm going to focus on the horror stuff, it's going to be year round. So I'm trying to remember that and kind of take that pressure off myself. But I do like to be creative and have kind of a creative outlet that kind of honestly keeps me from going insane. So yeah, I just kind of wanted to give everybody a little update on the channel. But yeah, I mean, we'll see what the future holds. But yeah, I mean, if you're interested in my wrestling reviews, definitely check out Wrestling in the Belfry, my other channel. I've actually taken a lot of older videos from this channel and just re-uploaded it on Wrestling in the Belfry's channel. So I have that. And then here, I'm generally just gonna focus more on scary horror stuff on this channel. So yeah, I hope you all will continue to follow me along with that. And other than that, I want to thank you all very much for watching. If you made it to the end of this video, I appreciate it. I appreciate your time. Give me a thumbs up on the video. It's greatly appreciated. If you'd like to see me do like more book stuff, or just like more general horror stuff, I'd love to hear your thoughts. I'd love to hear your comments. If you loved In a Violent Nature or hated In a Violent Nature, I'd love to hear your feedback. I'd love to hear just any feedback in general on this channel is greatly appreciated. So other than that, my name's Brett. I'll see you in a future video. Bye.